Hello and welcome to Global Business, CCTV's new program with insights into Africa's ever-changing business landscape. From Nairobi to Johannesburg, from Lagos to Cairo, from small businesses to large-scale corporates, we take you directly to entrepreneurs making the headlines. I'm G2 Abraham here in the Kenyan capital of Nairobi, where it's 9 p.m. It's 2 p.m. in Washington, D.C. and 2 a.m. in Beijing. Wherever you're joining us from, welcome. Tough times in Ghana as public and private sector workers take to the streets over the rising cost of living. And Zimbabwe slaps a ban on exports of uncut diamonds to spur the local industry. And finally, we explore the caves in Rwanda as the country strives to carve out a new niche attraction. We start in Ghana, where thousands of workers have taken to the streets to protest the rising cost of living. Employees from both the public and private sector joined in several marches across the country. They're demanding that the government intervene on the escalating cost of consumer goods. Now, the protests follow recent statements by President John Mahama, who expressed frustration over what he says was a snub by donors. Katerina Vitozzi has the details.
Shouting, singing and carrying their demands. This is one of Ghana's biggest workers' protests in years. These scenes in the capital matched by similar marches across the country. Protesters are angry about how expensive their lives have become.
Could you believe that a worker, a laborer is taking 150 Ghana a month? Look at this increment of fuel, water bill, electricity and so on. Even some of our children can't marry because of the living now. So we are asking the government to do something.
Our electricity are going high, our economy is bad, things are not being well. Every day they are increasing our things in our country, The government need to fix the economy for us.
The government says it is trying. In an attempt to rein in public spending, the government's cut subsidies for fuel and utilities. It's frozen public sector wages to try and reduce the overall wage bill. That's a key point workers' groups want more transparency on.
Government is telling workers that the bulk of the money is given to workers at the end of the day, or there's a huge pay packet for workers, which is up over 70%. Then what is left for running the country is 30%. We want a kind of proof to see if really what we're being told is the right thing, because we know that there are ghost names on payrolls, for example. If that alone is eliminated, we are way, ahead in solving our problem.
Thousands of protesters are now marching together into the capital centre. There are a variety of different groups of organised workers here, each with their own set of demands. However, there is one unifying theme, that wages simply aren't enough to cover the rising cost of living.
Since January, Ghana's currency, the cedi, has lost more than a third of its value against the US dollar. That's made imported household goods more expensive, things like rice, fruit and vegetables and bottled water. Workers say their wages simply can't stretch.
Our main message is that government this year has gone to negotiation with our leaders that our salaries should not be increased. There's a freeze on our salary increment. Meanwhile, everything is going up in this country by the minute, and that is not commensurate with our salaries. So for that reason, we want the government to know that that is not good with us. It doesn't sit well with us. They should bring things down, and this is just the beginning of what we're doing. We are just beginning this. If they don't listen to us, they are going to hear from us more time.
The government has sat down with labour and employers groups this week. Workers' unions are hopeful that an agreed-upon extra allowance will come into effect to help cushion the blow of rising prices. Katerina Vitozzi, CCTV, Accra, Ghana.
And now for an update on the missing Algier plane. Air Alger sales manager Zohir Hawawi has confirmed the nationalities of 116 passengers on board the Swiftair flight AH-5017. 50 of the passengers on board are French. He said the search for the plane in the area of Gao was ongoing. The plane left from Ouagadougou and was flying to the Algerian capital. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius has said the plane, which has 50 French citizens aboard, probably crashed. In the meantime, French forces stationed in Mali to fight rebels in the north have deployed planes to search for the missing plane.
We have details regarding the passengers' nationalities. So 6 Algerians, 50 French, 1 Malian, 1 Belgian, 2 Luxembourgers, 5 Canadians, 24 Burkinabe, 4 Germans, 1 Nigerian, 1 Cameroonian, 8 Lebanese, 1 Egyptian, 1 Ukrainian, 1 Romanian, 1 Swiss, and 6 Spanish crew members. And we still have 3 unidentified, and we are investigating to find out their nationalities.
Moving now to South Africa, the NUMSA strike in the country has taken a new twist, with the National Employers Association of the country and the Steel and Engineering Industry Federation of South Africa insisting that Section 37 of the main agreement of the Metal and Engineering Industries Bargaining Council be tightened. It's included in the latest offer from CIFSA, and as Angela Coppola reports, currently the 220,000 NUMSA members are considering whether to accept or reject the offer.
While the regional office bearers for NUMSA are reporting back to head office, we had a briefing this morning with the NUMSA leadership, and they were very specific about what the issues are.
Our employers are causing trouble for us to settle the strike because they are making very hasty demand, a demand that suggests that Section 37 must be amended, and their amendment of Section 37, basically they want to freeze history.
It's obviously in the employer's interests and in the economy's interests because many smaller employers are currently marginalized as part of the collective bargaining process. But it is a deal breaker for the union because it effectively removes some of their negotiating ability and power.
There's also a commonly held view that this strike is far from over.
I don't think NUMSA are going to agree to these terms. I think it is a deal breaker for them. I think they'd love to hold up an 8 to 10% increase as a victory for their workers, but the impact it has on the union's power is far too great for them to compromise.
The manufacturing sector contributes around 6.8% to GDP in the country. And if you consider that manufacturing growth declined from quarter 4 at 9.2% down to 2.7% in quarter 1 of this year, there's a big issue ahead of us. And also bear in mind that the AMCU strike cost the GDP numbers 1.3%, and that was only with 70,000 workers. I'm Angelo Coppola for CCTV in Johannesburg.
Peter Aleng now joins us. He's the Director of Quantitative Analysis at Profit Analytics. Peter, CIFSA has warned that wage increase would result in mass job cuts. Now, how would NUMSA react to this? Would they go back on strike?
I think they would, but I don't think it's going to do any justice. They have to choose between increases that aren't aligned with economic output or job cuts. Businesses simply can't carry these type of increases if it's not aligned with economic output or productivity or profitability for those companies.
Now, the National Employers Association has been quite critical of the Labour Minister's approach of only engaging CIFSA and NUMSA, arguing on July 18th that, quote, there has been no regard for the interest of small and medium-sized businesses. Now, what can NASA do now to seal their own deal?
Very little at this stage. It's part of what's in this Clause 37 of the Collective Bargaining Act that they'd like to amend. And even within SAFSA, we're talking about 27 independent employer bodies representing 2,200 businesses. The reality is small and medium enterprise are to a large extent marginalized in this process and they carry much less clout in terms of the negotiating power. And as long as that clause stands, as long as collective bargaining is allowed at these levels, they will continue to be marginalized.
All right, let's take a look now at the labor relations in the country. First AMCU strikes, then NUMSA. Now 3,000 cotton textile workers are on strike demanding a 10% increase in their pay also. Can we expect to see other labor sectors follow in their lead?
Most certainly. South Africa ranks 147th out of 147 countries in terms of their industrial relations. But I think it's precipitated by a crisis of relevance for the unions in South Africa. They're seeing declining membership, declining revenue from membership fees, and they're increasingly being asked by their members to account for where those membership fees are going. As a result, I think we can expect to see increasing union action going forward, although probably a lot less traction as a result of it. So more protracted strikes simply because employer organizations cannot afford these outputs on an ongoing basis, or these increases on an ongoing basis.
Now, the strikes have hit South Africa's economy very hard. In relation to labor sectors, what does the country need from them now to help strengthen their economy?
I think we need massive labor bill reform, so amendments to the Labor Relation Acts that allow probably less collective bargaining that can take place directly between employers and their employees, and opening the employment or labor markets to the unemployed and marginalized youth. Labor unions effectively act as a labor cartel to protect their members and actively preclude those who are not currently participating in the labor market from that labor market.
All right, thank you for that analysis. That's Peter Aling, Director of Quantitative Analysis at Profit Analytics. Now we move to Uganda, where the country is set to lose more revenue from its aviation sector after withdrawal of the country's flagship carrier. Air Uganda has suspended its operations indefinitely and plans to return the planes that it had leased from the contractor in Europe. Leon Sinyaga with more.
Last month, Uganda's aviation agency revoked Air Uganda's air operator certificate over safety concerns. Owing to the grounding, the company is to return 3 aircrafts to their leases as per their leasing agreement.
And in those lease contracts, there are covenants or provisions to say the aircraft must continue flying. If they are on the ground, then they have got to be preserved according to a program at a facility which is chosen by the owner of the aircraft. And these facilities are in Europe. So unfortunately for us, because we've been on the ground for a long time, we have got to send the aircraft away.
The regional carrier started operations in 2007 and flew about 750,000 passengers annually from Uganda's Entebbe airport to destinations in and around East Africa. East Africa's economies have led to the increased activity in the aviation sector, with airlines positioning themselves to tap into the growth. But the exit of a Ugandan-based carrier could have led to an even more dominant control of regional travel by other East African airlines. Regional airlines like Kenya Airways and Ethiopian Airlines, which competed with Air Uganda on some of their routes, have already benefited.
The travelers have felt it in their pocket, and as long as there is this gap, that situation is unlikely to change, for the simple reason that everything works on supply and demand. If the supply is small and the demand is high, obviously the prices go up. And that is what has happened in this case.
A new report by the African Airlines Association shows that Uganda is losing over $70 million annually for failing to fully open its aviation industry.
Look at it from a revenue base. That is a revenue lost, because it would pay taxes here, employment would be affected. So largely the economy would have lost a lot. But at the end of the day, I think for survival of tourism in the country, the booming economy, a country like Uganda would need to have their own carrier for them to survive in the industry.
The discovery of oil in Uganda is expected to increase demand for flights to the landlocked country, with anticipated increased cargo and passenger numbers. Leon Sanyange, CCTV, Kampala.
Looking now at the African markets that we track here for you and how they closed the day. For some numbers news out of Kenya, telecom operator Safaricom on Wednesday recovered from its lowest levels in 4-month lows to lift Kenyan shares higher as the shilling remained little changed against the dollar. The NSE closed the day 0.43% higher at 4,903.68 points. Coming up, Zimbabwe slaps a ban on exports of uncut diamonds to help spur the local industry. And we explore the caves in Rwanda as the country strives to carve out a tourist niche of its own.
Africa is on the move. It's home to 7 of the world's 10 fastest growing economies.
From small businesses to large-scale enterprises, hear directly from entrepreneurs behind the story. It's about putting you in the picture so you know where Africa fits in the global context.
Global Business, weekdays at this time on CCTV Africa.
African leaders have been urged to make it easier to move and do business across borders within the African continent.
Africans should be free to move in their continent, to do business, to interact, if we are to grow the levels of investment and trade that will ensure that we are able to create the jobs for our people that we require.
Welcome back. You're watching Global Business. Now, in a move intended to preserve a larger portion of the country's natural wealth, the government of Zimbabwe has banned the export of rough diamonds. Now, the vast diamond deposit in Marange in the east of the country could meet up to 30% of the world's diamond demand. Farai Makatuya has more on the impact of the government's decision.
Despite Zimbabwe's prominence in the global diamond industry, much of the economy here is yet to feel the benefits of its world-class deposits, in particular local cutters and polishers who set up shop in anticipation of huge returns. The export ban now means all diamonds must be value-added in-country, news that couldn't have come too soon for local players.
If you are going to take all your production and you take it elsewhere, all you're doing is you're empowering that region or that particular destination, and it gets in turn all the other hidden benefits. Tourism, hotel occupation, airlines. If you hear of 2,000 people coming to view our diamonds in another destination, why not have those 2,000 people in Zimbabwe? If we have those 2,000 people in Zimbabwe, we know that all other sectors are also going to benefit out of our mineral resource.
As many as 3,000 jobs could be created within the next 18 months, and revenue could increase by 300% by refining the gemstones locally, and even more if the country develops its jewelry production. 28 cutters and polishers who were issued with licenses in 2011 were forced to shut down during the past 3 years. So, is Zimbabwe ready to exploit the supply?
In terms of capacity, we do have cutters here. We do have machinery here. Yes, it may not compare with other regional or international destinations, but we've got a starting point.
The export ban is part of promised sweeping reforms to the sector, including reducing the number of players mining the Marange diamond fields, as government aims to take greater control over the precious stones.
In the past, the government has been faulted for coming up with great policies, but not following them up with action. Now it's desperate to get this economy going again, and perhaps that could be the reason why, in this case, there seems to be a bite behind its bark. Farai Makatuya, CCTV, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Rwanda has for a long time been considered a destination for guerrilla tourism, with the larger chunk of the country's tourism coming from this particular attraction. The country is, however, working to diversify its tourism products and has now opened the Musanze Cave Complex in the north as a new attraction. For tonight's What's Hot segment, Peter Wakaba sampled the caving experience and filed this report.
Tight security, a lot of protective gear, and a large cave complex, and we are ready to go. The Musanze Caves complex in northern Rwanda is an underground formation caused by a volcanic eruption millions of years ago. Long known by the locals, but only more recently developed as a tourism attraction and being readied for a regular stream of visitors. In fact, several tube caves have been discovered in the wider area of Musanze, which is just about 2 kilometers in length and has massive potential. The visit to the caves is not for the claustrophobic or the faint-hearted, and as you descend, you feel the world close in on you. No one really knows how old these caves at Musanze are, though experts indicate that they could date as far back as several million years old. The Rwanda government, though, is trying to develop this into a major tourist attraction, along the lines of the gorilla tracking safaris that have made Rwanda famous. The caves themselves provide a different experience which can be complementary to the more traditional tourism activities like safari tourism and bird watching, and thus open up new avenues to increase revenue collection and even benefit local communities.
5% of all the total tourism income goes to the communities. So they do benefit from this as well. So they're very happy to see tourists.
The Musanze caves are home to thousands of bats and are found in the volcanic region, where lava flows have created the Albertine Rift Valley. They are also popular with scientists.
You see, there are some people, the archaeology which they are just to do the study, they take only the rocks. That is the estimation.
The cave's experience is not complete without turning out the lights and in the pitch darkness feeling that you have become one with the earth. A new experience and a new income stream for the people of this region. Peter Akaba, CCTV in Musanze, Rwanda.
Looking now at how commodity prices for the day are. Let's focus on coffee, specifically coffee coming out of Uganda. The country exported about 265,000 60-kilogram bags of the commodity in June. According to Uganda Coffee Development Authority, this is 27% drop from the year before. Moving now to Brent crude, which remained steady above $108 a barrel on Thursday, holding on to previous day gains. This is after a surprisingly strong reading on Chinese manufacturing bolstered hopes for higher demand in the world's second biggest oil consumer. And when we come back, the fortunes of Somali chat traders go down the drain as the stimulant floods the market.
BizAsia. Asia means business.
Welcome back. You're watching Global Business. Now we start back with the short, flowery stimulant twig known as chat or kat. The twig is said to cause users feelings of joy and excitement and is popular in Somalia. For the past month, users have seen the prices of chat drop drastically in Mogadishu. This follows a recent UK ban on the plant that saw chat importers from Kenya and Somalia nearly double. For tonight's Grassroots segment, Mohammed Hirmogi tells us how increased demand in the stimulant has decreased profits for traders.
Cat imports into Mogadishu from Kenya have soared in recent weeks. That is since the British government implemented a ban on the stimulant last month. The United Kingdom had been Kenya's biggest export market for the stimulant, but now the bulk of that export has been diverted to Somalia. Prices too have significantly dropped and cat consumers are the happiest lot.
We are happy. We even say thanks. We get it very cheap. The difference is more than $50 for each sack. We really enjoyed this month and we hope this continues.
The supply has nearly doubled. 18 flights, all carrying only carts, arrive in Mogadishu daily.
Before the ban, 13 flights used to arrive, but now the daily flights are more than 18, so cart comes in plenty. Good for the chewers, bad for business.
The difference is so big. We had up to $500,000 in sale of cart that was sent to Kenya weekly, but now we are unable to trade even $50,000. It is that big.
Now a bundle goes for $5, down from $20, and this has caused frustration among cart vendors.
The prices have drastically dropped. A sack was $75. We now sell it at less than $15. It has affected our business. We barely make a living out of it now. There were days a sack would reach $100. Those were the good days, not anymore.
For traders, it's an all-time low in profit. But for chewers, it is an endless fun. A Muslim country, the consumption of alcohol and most drugs is socially unacceptable here. But the use and dealings of cart are considered grey areas. Mohammed Hirmoge, CCTV, Mogadishu.
Moving to Côte d'Ivoire, Africa should unite by pooling resources to enhance job creation within the continent. Now, these are some excerpts of ongoing employment conference being held in the country. About 25 African ministers responsible for vocational training, employment, and youth matters in their respective countries are attending the event. According to a report released during the meeting, 60% of youth are unemployed on the continent. This is blamed on rising conflicts and a lack of commitment from the public and private sector. Although the continent is growing at an average rate of 5%, unemployment levels remain high. Participants, who also include 30 experts from technical and financial fields, agreed to mobilize African countries in finding a solution to this problem. All right, let's take a look now at how your money is trading. According to a statement by Nigeria's central bank deputy governor on Wednesday, the country's central bank needs to increase its foreign exchange reserves before conditions would be suitable for a rate cut, although the governor noted that a cut is unlikely to happen before presidential elections being held next year. All right, just before we go, here's a look at what's coming up on Global Business tomorrow. Somalia's rival telecom companies Hormund National Link and Somalitel have agreed to allow customers to call any network. This wasn't possible before, but each mobile company could only call within its network and internationally. We bring you the details of this agreement and its impact on the telecommunications sector in the country. And the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa still has not made up its mind on the 10% offer made by the Steel and Engineering Institute Federation. Just a few hours now before the Friday deadline. What's next for the country? We'll have that and more on Global Business tomorrow. That's it for this edition of Global Business. Remember, you can send us your feedback to globalbusinessafrica@cctv.com. You can visit our Facebook page, CCTV Africa. You can also stay in touch with Global Business on Twitter using the handle @CCTV News Africa. I'm G2 Abraham. Thanks for watching.